warm welcome to Policy and Politics with me, Tarun Nangia. Today, we're going to discuss the all-important issue of getting to a $5 trillion economy for India. Recently, there was good news. We crossed $400 billion in exports. That in itself is an achievement. How do we get to the all-important figure of $1 trillion of exports? That's the question. But even increasing exports by $100 billion means a lot. So if you go from 400 to 500, that itself is a lot of achievement. How we get to that $500 billion figure is what we're going to specifically discuss today. I have an eminent panel. Joining me is Gopal Krishna Agarwal. He's Chief Economic Spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Also, he has a flair for numbers because he qualified as a chartered accountant, so he can give you even minute details. Good to see you, Agarwalji, and looking forward to some interesting anecdotes. I have with me an IS officer, Ma'am Aruna Sharma. We all know her. She famously served as the Secretary, Ministry of Steel, also Secretary in the Ministry of Communications and IT. Currently is a board member. Good to see you, ma'am, and looking forward to some interesting inputs from you. At the outset, may I request Mr. Gopal Agarwal to open the show. We recently saw that the government put out communication where they said that $400 billion crossed. We are marching to 1 trillion. If you could open the show and then we get to the specifics, over to you. You're not audible. You're not audible.
Thank you, Tarunji. And my good wishes to Arunaji. What is that today's topic is very relevant and we are all interested in this discussion. When the Prime Minister said that we have a target of $5 trillion economy in the near future. So that's an important target and milestone. And the good start was that we have crossed UK and now are the 5th largest economy. And the next is in line is Germany, which has $3.7 trillion economy, which is, I think it's very easy to cross. And then is the Japan, which has $4.2 trillion economy. So we are expecting that by the end of this decade, we will be able to cross the and take the position to of $3 trillion, largest third largest economy in the world. There are sectors which have been identified by the government, and the Prime Minister, under the new coming year initiative of G20, has been saying at various platforms that we have to search for and work in those sectors where we have an edge over the other countries, because it's a competitive world. Globally, there are competition. Globally, there is a problem of recession and inflation. So we cannot only depend on the this export economy. And we have seen that there are certain negative reports on this side also, though we have crossed a good figure of 400 figure of exports. But then there are certain challenges. To meet those challenges, we are working on our bilateral trade agreement with some countries where we have good potential to integrate our supply chain to those countries. And the sectors like automobile, pharmaceutical, other this chip manufacturing and other areas where we have, if we integrate our domestic manufacturing industries to those industries globally, like Australia, UAE, UK, and America, etc. So we will have good support for our export side, but we have to also work on the side of what the Prime Minister is saying is about the cultural economic aspect of the country. We have large potential about tourism. We have large potential about various domestic products of handicraft, etc. And then areas like music instruments, areas like which depend upon this architecture, etc. So these are the cultural economy side which has large potential for us. So pharmaceuticals, vaccination is one success story. Then in the automobile sector, chip manufacturing, and the government through its PLI schemes in around 30 sectors is also working to support and develop manufacturing sector. Some of the states are also taking lead in this area, like Uttar Pradesh is holding the Investors Summit, Global Investor Summit on 10th and 11th February, and it is expecting that we will attract 15 lakh crores of investment. And when the Yogi ji says that the road to $5 trillion economy goes through Uttar Pradesh, and that through also in the area like Noida and this area, which infrastructure is being developed at a very fast pace, multimodal transportation hub. So the Prime Minister and the central government and the state governments are working towards creating a good infrastructure of transportation, whether it is railways, roadways, airways, waterways, tourism is an area. And these are the India's growth story, I think, will move ahead. And we are already an outlier. Our inflation is under control with inflation falling below 6%. And our GDP growth is expected to be around 7%. So I think in near future, we can achieve this $5 trillion. It's a target, but I think it is also a commitment and the willpower of the people which will help. And I'll also mention here that the defense sector is also one area where large potential is there. 2-3 days back, there was a report that the government had targeted that 60% of its defense requirement and procurement will be done domestically. And it has crossed, Rajnath ji mentioned that 68% of our defense requirement has been procured domestically. So defense is one area where also growth is there. We have large market. We don't need to only depend upon export potential. There are challenges in the export area. We have to work where our manufacturing sector integrates with the global supply chain, and our domestic market also develops a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for that opening comment. Now I'll go to Ma'am Aruna Sharma. Ma'am, your opening comment on India's march to a $5 trillion economy.
Absolutely. Mr. Agarwal has set the tone in the right perspective. I will be a little devil's advocate here, because initially we all hope by 22 we will be quite on an accelerated pace towards $5 trillion economy. But yes, we were hit badly by the COVID as well as the Russia-Ukraine war. It did upset the various benchmarks which were thought of. But if you want to go for $5 trillion economy, it is very, very important to dissect the whole thing and then move ahead. What Mr. Agarwal rightly said, that we have a huge domestic market, and therefore for us a break-even is domestic. We are not export dependent on expansion. So what is needed is a quality product which will come out for the consumers, and we have an internal sale good enough. And of course, an export window will always be open to balance it out when we are moving ahead and create a niche for ourselves in the world market. What problem we are facing in achieving in an accelerated pace $5 trillion economy is we have to focus on a holistic approach to policy making in each sector. Because many a times what happens, there is a problem, and that problem, a policy is created. But then there could be a negative impact on that sector because of that particular policy on the other wing of it. Just to explain to you and to give you an example of it, suppose in mining, if you go on it, what has happened, we went for auction policy in 2015, but Goa came to a standstill because of that policy. So answer for Goa from 2015, now 2022, we found the answer. And Goa, which was 100% export oriented, what happened is, unfortunately, the population, every household, one person is dependent on mining. So they ended up from a highest per capita income to a low sliding per capita income. And state government, which has never borrowed the money, had to borrow 5,000 crores of rupees. So there was a double whammy to them when COVID happened. So tourism also went for 6. So their two major sources of income got stuck because of holistic thought we were not able to give at that moment of time, which the correction was done literally 6 years later. Similarly, it is happening in every sector where some rollback, some duty is imposed, which does not give a holistic thought. So what is important in each sector to sit on the drawing board again and again and again. And before a policy is announced or executed, it is very important to have a discussion with the stakeholders because they know where the shoe pinches. That is the line ministry, the people who are involved into it, they are into the manufacturing world and take it ahead. The second thing I will say is very important is besides becoming the fifth largest economy, what challenge a country like India with 1.4 billion population is to have an inclusive growth. So that, okay, in absolute numbers we will achieve, but whether our poverty numbers are increasing or our hunger index is getting negatively affected, these things are also equally important. And for them, the answer, what rightly has been said by Mr. Agarwal, is MSME. So a holistic approach for MSME sector, which will provide sustainable employment as well as add to the GDP, is very important because I deal quite a lot in the core sectors where very high level of automation is coming. And with that automation, employment is not going to increase in the same proportion as the business or production or exports are going to increase. But MSME is the one which is going to give us an answer for both of our problems. That is accelerated rate of GDP, as well as to ensure that we generate an employment. And I always feel that skilling ministry should focus on MSME and let us put the bill of 1 or 2 people in each of the MSME for 1 or 2 years. And that's the best skill employability we can offer to the youth in this country. Instead of, that Hindi film tailoring sikha rahe, ye sikha rahe, we have to come out of that mode completely. And yes, we can achieve. And I am very optimistic that India has got all the ingredients to become a $5 trillion or in fact, crossing $5 trillion economy in coming 5 to 10 years, provided we have a holistic approach, provided we define benchmark of achieving every year of this decade. Because it should not be at the end of decade like internationally you had MDGs and now you have SDGs. Because MDG we could not achieve as a world as a whole. Now we have an SDG targeted towards, again, 2030. And we are not on that path at all, that we will achieve it in 2030. So same will apply to us. Therefore, this benchmarking is very important when we are moving. So these are something, the concrete nuts and bolts I like to make a mention here. That yes, we have all potential, but to ensure we don't miss the bus, we will have to focus on these nuts and bolts.
Thank you for those initial comments. I'll go to Gopal Krishna Agarwal from here. Agarwalji, one thing I want to understand from you. California state in America has got a GDP of $3.7 trillion. Now, that is more than India's economy. India's economy is roughly there about $3 trillion. A state in America is $700 billion more than what India is. Now, should we also identify states in India which will become California of India? Basically, some states which will give us enormous GDP growth over the others. Like California is doing so much in USA, India should identify some states which will also be outliers. Do you think such identification is happening and then certain industries should be focused there?
Definitely, this is being done because if you see the example of Uttar Pradesh, I just mentioned that in February, it will be a big initiative by the government. But you see, the population of Uttar Pradesh of about 24 crore is more than the total population of the whole Europe together. So area land mass is also larger than the European states. So there are certain very strong potentials in the areas. In South also, there are good development areas. If you look into Hyderabad, the way Telangana has done in IT sector or other Bangalore is doing, we have to identify areas where there are potential. Government is doing that also. And Uttar Pradesh, as I said, is going to be a very big propeller for the economy. And I would also like to mention here, you mentioned about California. The thing is that Indian economy is an outlier at present and the fastest growing economy. We have to look into the global perspective also. People are talking, 3 different countries were propelling global economic growth. US was one propeller, but at present it is feeling the pinch of inflation and recession. Yeah, it is having an inflation of more than a higher inflation than 40 years record history. So that is one problem. European countries are facing challenge because of their energy crisis. And the third was the China, which was propelling growth. They are having because of their COVID policy. These three important countries which were propelling growth in the global arena are facing challenges. And India, after the pandemic, the way pandemic was tackled with vaccination and fiscal stimulus, etc., at the time when it had the maximum multiplier effect on the post-pandemic fiscal stimulus with PLI and other schemes, Atmanirbhar Bharat package, our economy has started on a very strong footing. So comparing to the global challenges of three important areas facing challenge, India is in a situation which can propel the global economy, and that is showing in the global perspective also. Therefore, investment is coming, capital market investment is going, stock market is at the highest. Various industries are interested to put a project in here. Last point I just want to mention here also, from Arunaji said that absolute numbers are not the only thing that we should target. And if you look into the National Executive, where the Prime Minister gave a very strong message on 16 and 17, and one resolution was the socio-economic development. And he said specifically that only $5 trillion numbers or chasing is not, it is that how this $5 trillion is percolated into the life of individual household and individual person, that we have to look into. And therefore, using technology through direct benefit transfer, providing impetus to the rural infrastructure of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana, cluster development, etc. 2 lakh this new cooperative organizations are being developed. 10,000 farmer producer or organization are also being done. So both area, the size of the cake does matter. Economic growth on a larger perspective of absolute number are important that we are looking into, but at the same time, this growth and this development percolates to the rural areas, where large population of a country lives, and to the benefit goes to the poor area is also our focus. So socio-economic development and percolation of the growth to the last person in the economy is also helping.
I want to ask you one quick follow-up, and then I'll go to Ma'am Aruna Sharma. See, the age of the average Indian today is 29 years. In Japan, the average median age of a Japanese is 49 years. So it's about 20 years older than us. But Japan is now called a very old country, and they have a problem of managing their old people, because there are entire cities of old people. In fact, there are many articles saying entire cities are being redesigned so that older people can live comfortably, because the whole city has grown old. I sometimes fear that what India's state will be, because India has much more population than Japan, and 25 years later, we'll also be a country of old people. Do you think this is the 20 years we have to grow the economy? Because an old country can't grow fast. It's a young country that grows fast. So do you think we have very less time now? We've got about 15, 20 years to do all the growth we can.
No, the Prime Minister, when he said that we are in after this 75 years of independence, we are in this Amrit Kal. This Amrit Kal is a very important concept that the Prime Minister is talking about. He's saying that at present, India's global image is very strong. Our economy is very strong. And this 25 years will be the best years. You also said that our population is this 25 years is very important, Amrit Kal, where India can see a good growth and very strong position in the global arena. And we should not, this kind of opportunity comes rarely in the life of any country. And it has come after, I think, centuries that we are seeing this situation where there is a positive perspective about India diplomatically, economically, At present, our the infrastructure is being developed. We have the government which has a strong will for the economic growth and prosperity of the country. So in this 25 years is the best chance. We should not miss this chance. We should together do every collective with collective will we have to achieve this. One thing, the last point that I want to underline in this before you talk to Arunaji is in democratic, some of the time you have mentioned very important area where we will be aging fast. We are a young country, but at times people say a apprehension that we may grow old before we may grow rich. This is an apprehension. And if you see the current debate about OPS, NPS, you will see certain reforms which are very much required in growth in our growth story, which Arunaji also mentioned, that we have to look into those reform factors. And in that narration is harming at times. Certain narrations in the country, whether it was the farm law or now going back because of the Revdi culture or going back to OPS, which is a very bad schemes, which do not have a sustainable model of growth. So that narration also people have to build, that we have to build a narration of pro-economic support from the people of the country.
Point well taken. I'll take both these questions I asked you to Ma'am Aruna Sharma. So ma'am, first I'll repeat it for your convenience. First was, like California is an outlier in that sense that it does disproportionate amount of GDP. Will India also encourage states? For example, UP, in addition to manufacturing, is one of the most fertile lands in the world, not only India. So even food processing and agriculture can be a big industry in UP in addition to that. Second question was, of course, growing old before we grow rich. If you can address both of these.
Surely. Like in India, you will find in an organic way, many of the states have developed USPs. Like if you look at it, Tamil Nadu for small car manufacturing, it has gone in a very big way and we are exporting majority of them. Like IT was mentioned by Mr. Agarwal for Hyderabad, Bangalore. These have come up for software exports in a very, very big way. So like that, in a natural course, you are coming. And yes, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar is a challenge because these are popular states with low industrialization. And they are, in a way, a labor supplier across the country. So that needs definitely a focus and develop on their USPs of, the agro-based products, which can go in a very big way for Bihar. The minerals can also go in a very big way. When you're working upon it, Jharkhand also joins that. Erstwhile, if you look at that, then when you look, because these are landlocked states, so working on them is very, very important. So you have hardworking people. As a good input there, you have very intelligent people also coming up from that area. But what it needs is a proper scope of industrialization, which is going to help. So these natural clusters are emerging. And the policy which will help them to trigger is very important. Like today, the fear is Web 3.0. We missed Web 2.0. So in Web 3.0, whether it will have an India brand, or it will be Indians working in other countries of the world, right? So we don't want Indians working in other countries of the world. We want an India brand, that India is the leader in Web 3.0. The policies have to be very supportive, which is coming in different forms of blockchains, or you're taking on the gaming and other places. That is how they are interlinked. And on your last point of aging, yes, it's a last chance with us. We have this 20 years, and what Mr. Agarwal very beautifully put it, that whether we will become elderly before becoming rich. And that's a challenge. We just can't miss it. So therefore, yes, any policy, which hindrances us or pulls us back by 1 year or 2 years is having a very big impact. So therefore, it has to be well thought out, well tested thing to roll down, and a constant going back to drawing boards, so that we keep on pushing these thoughts, which has been very well articulated by the government, that this is a vision. This is where we want to take now. The challenge is to everybody who is responsible to make it into that rhetoric to a reality. So every step we'll have to keep on checking, and we have shown it in some of the areas, shown it that it has succeeded, it is doing well, it is rolling on its own. speed and inertia, it is going ahead on that. So that is very important, that we have to be absolutely focused and not waste our energy into trivialities, because the energy is same, and how much of that energy we use is very important to push India into a rich country with inclusive growth, as well as heading towards the leadership. That is very important.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you, for joining us on this show on marching towards a $5 trillion economy. In our next show, we will specifically discuss infrastructure, where I would like to invite both of you on how much of money we should be putting in infrastructure and infrastructure projects. What kind of projects should they be? Because a world-class economy needs world-class infrastructure. Some states have done good in infrastructure, but I think a lot has to be done. I think that's a good area to have take up. But that's it for now. Thank you so much, Mr. Gopal Agarwal, Ma'am Aruna Sharma, for making time and joining on this very important issue. Thank you so very much, viewers, for tuning in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.